Alright, we're trying this one more time. I think I fixed the issue. We should be good to go. And now I'm seeing in the bottom corner I'm not dropping any frames. So fingers crossed. So rather than rewind, try and go through. Or, we can only rewind a couple of minutes. So let's just sort of see what the state of the game is like right now. It turns out that Karma was going mid with the support Maokai. That makes a lot more sense in terms of a team comp, so that you have a ranged matchup into the Victor. But it looks like whatever happened mid lane didn't go very well at all. The Karma with presumably Viego support, I was able to get a lot accomplished. It seems like this Maokai pick really isn't doing much either. You can see that the Jhin has the highest kill participation at 9, and the Maokai only has 2 kill participation. So it seems like something a little weird is going on there. But it is what it is. The current state of the game has it where Ornn has 2 completed items, looking very good. The Sejuani has a Heartsteel. The Heartsteel has almost no stacks on it, so that is going to be problematic. It is a great scaling item, but if you can't get it scaling, it's going to be problematic. As for actual fights and combat pressure, we see that's a Hearthstone Karma mid, so just that Enchanter to empower the rest of the team. And quite frankly, with that type of build, it seems like the biggest carry is actually going to be the Viego, because Jhin is not known for that consistent DPS. So I'm going to make a quick little announcement here. It was a valiant attempt there to try and pick out the Viego. Unfortunately, no cigar. Ocean Soul is on the line. And it looks like we're not even going to try and contest that, we're just going to take the waves. Potentially look for this pick on the Alawi, but the Alawi is buying enough time for the rest of the team to get there. Zeri just jumping away. So if we look at that mini-map, all the turrets, all the outer turrets are very low, so there's a lot of standing gold on the map, especially if they can get those simultaneously for MiSFiTS. And if they time it well, and they do all the things at a similar timing, they could just get, just 900 gold bounty if they're able to take all of those outers at the same time. So that'd be a really big influx for them. Let's see, where is the gold? So, fortunately, Zeri has a decent chunk of gold there. Unfortunately, a decent bit behind the Jhin, but the Ornn is actually looking pretty strong here, and Ornn is one of those tanks that Jhin has trouble getting, Jhin has trouble getting through tanks, period. So having strong tanks this game actually is somewhat beneficial, because at that point you're looking at Viego being the only one who can shoot through it, and Viego's a lot easier to get to and deal with than this Jhin currently. No, that was awkward. Don't quite want to give the Renata the item enchantment. So ADC has the item enchantment. I was probably looking to give it to Victor next, so I'll have to see if he can do that soon enough. It looks like they are pinging the Baron. That is going to be the next major objective up on the map. Speaking of, let's go ahead and turn on these objective timers. They can occasionally be kind of helpful. The HUD is a little wonky, but that's okay. We're just missing a red buff timer. Which, I'm fine with. We do get the Enchanted Eye of Luden there. And so the question here is sort of, what are the win conditions for each team? Blue team is... I'd call it very much sort of this mid-game oriented team comp, right? So you have the Viego trying to get those resets, but then on top of that, you also have this Karma, who's this really powerful enchanter, but she doesn't have many people to enchant, and Alawi, of course, always struggles with team fights, although you can see her walloping the Ornn pretty hard there. So I definitely think that in terms of team fighting, MiSFiTS has the superior team comp, especially since, you know, if Jin gets clipped by the Berserk, then it's very possible he's going to accidentally one-shot, you know, one of his supports. This looks like a very good fight to take. They got a lot of major cooldowns. Alawi doesn't have ult, so her being in the middle of the team doesn't accomplish too much. Very well done here. Maokai gets isolated. The rest of the team gets pushed off. Very aggressive flash by the Zeri, but the Jin isn't turning around and auto-attacking. Everyone looks like they're getting out. The Jin takes the blast cone the wrong direction, but nothing comes of it. You know, all those summoners traded, all those ults traded, and all that happens to Maokai goes down. So MiSFiTS are going to take whatever win they can get. So we'll have to see if they can start pushing that into more and more gold and more objectives. Because the big thing right now is that Ocean Soul is coming up in 1 minute and 10. You can see in that middle bottom right hand corner there. So with Ocean Soul up in 1 minute, we're going to have to be paying attention to whether or not they can secure it, because especially with that Moonstone Karma, it's going to be extremely difficult for MiSFiTS to really cut through some of the bruisers on this team with the Viego and the Alawi. So you see that Moonstone and Redemption just stacking that heal power, stacking that shield power. So it's going to be difficult to shoot through Alawi especially. Zeri is going to really need to come online to be able to handle that. And then the question is, can Zeri survive long enough? So far, it looks like MiSFiTS does have overall better vision control. They sort of see exactly what's going on here on the map. Their opponents don't quite seem to have very good deep vision. However, they do have enough vision just immediately located around the objective. The Karma isn't there, but Karma does have TP available. It looks like they're going for the trade to try and get Baron when MiSFiTS secure this dragon. You know, MiSFiTS glad to take that free objective bounty. Baron already getting started. Question is, will they get there in time? They definitely don't have that Baron DPS with a Jin. So, in the end, it seems like they forfeit that Baron entirely for free. Ornn ult comes through, but now they know that that's a cooldown that they no longer have available. Alawi is on the inhibitor. Alawi is actually taking it very, very, very slowly. It does have the Sunder, but is seemingly going to trade her life here for the inhib. You know, that ult does come through, but not enough healing or damage coming out. But we do see, in the meantime, Baron is getting secured by TDS Esports. And there we go. Smite comes through. Baron over to the blue team. They are TDS, right? Pretty sure I asked what the team name was. I should have it somewhere. I don't have it here, so possibly in the draft link. TDS United, my bad. TDS United. Yeah, so far it's, you know, for the past couple minutes it's been a fairly quiet game. There have been sort of these big moves coming back and forth where you're looking at trying to bait out objectives, see if you can catch someone off guard. But these Ocean Dragons are starting to stack up for MiSFiTS. If they can somehow miraculously get Ocean Soul, these long extended trades that like the Alawi wants to get are going to be, you know, very heavily in their favor. So that mid turret finally does go down. It has been beaten and battered over the past couple minutes. But the good thing for MiSFiTS is losing that bot inhib. Sure, they ended up losing Baron, but now they're getting force-fed all that golden CS through that bottom lane. Meanwhile, TDS United is not benefiting from any of that gold. The lack of range damage is really... Yeah, let's go MiSFiTS. The lack of range damage is really showing here with how slow and difficult it is for this team to try and actually push this turret despite having that Baron buff. Really good catch onto the Jhin. Can they get the shutdown? Unfortunately, they're not able to. The Maokai disengage comes through, but we do see that the blue summoner heal out of the Jhin. Popped Gale Force as well. Gale Force is a relatively long cooldown. Not quite as long as a summoner spell, but it is an important cooldown to keep in mind. That's a 90-second timer. If they can force another fight, you know, as they're setting up vision control, maybe 40 seconds to Dragon spawning, he's not going to have that evasive ability up. Or item use. You know what? English is difficult. I don't care if it's my native language. So, again, we see that really good vision control coming out of MiSFiTS in the sort of bottom river quadrant of the map. Karma is running through here trying to clear some of it, but the objective itself is very thoroughly worded. But for now, we're just playing that tower defense game. We see Ornn is level 17. That means that all the ornaments should have come through. Yeah, so we see that that's done, except for the Heartsteel for the Sejuani. Arguably the least important thing there. Just gonna give you, what, a little bit of extra HP. So, good prioritization on that. You can be very tempted to give it to your jungler as opposed to the support, but I agree with him where the support here is going to get better benefit than the Sejuani will of those bonus stats. My big concern here with Ornn matching the Illaoi is that Ornn, I think, is more important for MiSFiTS than Illaoi is for TDS. So TDS is happy to take that trade. A really good engage over the wall there onto the Maokai, but Ornn is TPing. Illaoi is just sticking it out. Illaoi is going to get another inhib guaranteed. Right, no one's going to come back and stop the inhib. The question is... Interesting flash over the wall there for the Karma. But she is sort of isolated on her own. Illaoi is trying to get triple inhib here in response, but like I said, MiSFiTS might not care. Right, that Baron is down. I guess it does spawn in 90 seconds, so maybe they don't want all three inhibs down in 90 seconds. But Karma and Viego are kind of isolated here. This is a very split fight. You know, everything happening all over the place. But Ornn here is bodying the Jhin. Right, Jhin force pop stopwatch. Ornn gets this kill every time, so that's going to be a really big kill there. Fail flash out of the Jhin, but the Illaoi is now sitting on that turret. They end up just running straight into the base. Zeri goes down, or Zeri makes it out, but they can't peel people off of the Nexus. They're trying their best to peel people off the Nexus. All it's going to take is a couple more auto attacks, and there it goes. I actually want to rewind that because the directed camera was focusing on the fight in the jungle. I want to sort of see what's going on here as we wait for this next game to come through. Where we can sort of speed this up some, but we see Illaoi's hitting here, and this chase that's happening, they eventually run up into the base. And we have two cannon waves there. That's more than enough to clear everything. And people trying to defend get wiped out by the Illaoi under the tower. And that's where that GG comes through. So, unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. But for now, we're just going to have to wait it out and see what happens next. So we can look at some of these post-game stats here. So we see the Victor actually did a lot of work this game despite being so far behind, so I think that's a very good indicator here. Zeri wasn't able to accomplish too much, right? And that's sort of what I was talking about before. There's a lot of that zone control, and if only one person is on Zeri, it's difficult for Zeri to get so much damage out in a short time span. But we do see the Illaoi had a ton of damage dealt, but that's to be expected when you're in that sort of wet noodle fight with the Ornn. But I'm actually very curious about this damage dealt to turrets here. 17,000 damage dealt to towers right there. That is brutal. Seems like almost every turret was taken by this Illaoi. So, despite not necessarily doing the best in lane by themselves, they were able to move around the map and make sure that their impact was felt. But a big part of that is just how strong TDS was doing on that bottom side of the map, where they had the 7-1 Jhin all the way up until the end. They had the really, super far ahead support Karma in the mid lane, or I guess supportive Enchanter in the mid lane. Right, you can see she's already got those 4 items completed, whereas the Renata, for example, is sitting on, Shard of True Ice and Primordial Dawn. So, big difference there in that level of utility coming out. And Karma, we also know, can always do damage anyway, so we see that full support build, but still 14,000. As far as I'm aware, it should be best of 3, so we are going to see minimum 1 more game, possibly 2 more games. Yeah, so we see he's entering that custom game right now. And yeah, so we're going to be hopping into that soon. I'm going to have to keep an eye on my Discord to see if I'm getting anything there. I don't appreciate how glitched out that is. That's kind of... Yeah, okay. So there we go, we're going to be sitting on this screen for a little while as we wait for everything else to play out. Do I have the Spotify link to this? Just Warm Proud, no biggie. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is just that one game. So, sizing up the opponent. Yeah, I'm just a little bummed that I wasn't really able to watch what happened in the early game, because I think that really tells the story. One thing that maybe didn't quite get broadcast while I was trying to figure everything out is that there was a really early kill that happened bot lane where Jhin got the Q 4th shot execute onto Zeri, and Zeri blue flash anyways. So I think that could have really set the pace for that bottom lane where they lost flash for free and still died. And no summoners were blown by the Jhin at all whatsoever. So that definitely puts your bot lane in a really, really difficult spot there. But let's see. This source panel isn't working correctly. There we go. There we go, that took long enough. So, for now we're just gonna wait and see what happens. You can see whatever banter's going on in the chat. I don't care, presumably they don't either. At least I haven't heard anyone complaining, but we'll keep it that way. So, I do have the draft spectate pulled up, but Currently nothing is going on in there. I will go ahead and swap screens as soon as that's ready. So we'll have to see. I believe this was that mid laner, a Deviate, so we can at least check him out a little bit. Ah, a Kali main. Looks like pretty much a Kali one trick. Been practicing a lot of Katarina. And a decent bit of Syndra. Okay. And we see very few Karma games played, but we do have this one right here in the middle as well, where it seemed to do extremely well. And I see drafts going on in the background, so let's swap views back over. So MiSFiTS starting that Mordekaiser ban. TDS returning with a Senna. Syndra getting banned out. Yeah, I'm a lot less concerned with the Syndra, a lot more concerned with the Akali coming out of mid. But you never know. Then we see the Tryndamere banned by TDS as well. Karma being the last ban, you know, I can respect it. If you haven't laned versus it, it's one of those things that's very difficult to accommodate to, because it's a very different type of annoying than most other champions, especially mid lane can be. So, compared to last game, we're missing out on the Udyr ban. So, Udyr is left available for TDS. So we'll see if they want to pick the Udyr here now that the Karma is banned. But I feel like Udyr is another one of those champions that really benefits from having that supportive mid laner. But it looks like the exact same 3 bans coming out for TDS, which I don't mind. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. First pick coming through, and it is the Amumu. Amumu, always a powerful option, both jungle and support. So much CC coming on that tiny body. You know, he just wants to give you a hug, and he will smother you to death with those hugs. Question is, what else do they want to grab here? If they grab the Udyr, then they immediately show their hand that this is a support Amumu. But grabbing Kalista kind of gives that tell as well, because Kalista is such a good partner for the Amumu. So I'd be willing to bet that right now it's that Kalista Amumu bot lane. Here's where, if it's played, I'd want to grab the Yasuo right away. But you can obviously always return with your bottom lane response, so that they can't just ban out some of the better responses to it. Kaiser Braum coming through. Braum is good at blocking stuff for the Kaiser, but I'm not sure if they're going to necessarily be winning any of these fights. That being said, Braum eating all of the Kalista Spears is going to be very beneficial and helpful for the Kaiser and just those straight up 1v1s. Or not 1v1s, and those straight up 2v2s bot lane. But yeah, there we go. So the Akali coming through, and the beauty about having that R3 pick is now you can immediately ban 2 very bad matchups into the Akali. So the question is, what are those 2 matchups that he doesn't want to play against? Oh. Okay, they're just going for those top lane bans anyways. That can kind of give the impression that this could be an Akali top, but having literally just checked the Akali and seeing that it's, you know, the mid laner's main champ, so it's probably staying mid. We see the jungle ban out by MiSFiTS, both Viego and Volibear off the table, resorting to the Graves here for TDS United. And Yasuo taken off the table here for MiSFiTS. Again, that's sort of why I was looking at, if you're going to pick it, you're going to want to pick it blue 2 or blue 3, because then they get that ban pretty much for free. We see Nocturne coming through, which could mean that this is a mid Diana, which if Diana mid is one of those weird niche picks, but I believe it does decently into the Akali, and that leaves you with the jungle Nocturne and top Urgot. And Yorick is going to be the answer into the Urgot. Possibly. Are we going to lock it in, big boy? No, the Alawi coming through again. Either way, both of those champions sort of have that same goal of trying to... I should leave it on this screen at least for a little while. You can still see, you know, the picks and bans around it. Fermenting dregs. Is this man a support main? This man is indeed a support main. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like both with the Alawi and with that York pick, you're not playing for team fights, you're playing for the very obnoxious, I'm going to be, you know, out split pushing the entire time, building up pressure, and he did a very good job with that last game. So we'll have to see if he can do a decent job of it this game as well. Urgot sort of falls in that same boat as a champion that's not the strongest in team fights, but if Urgot gets ahead, he very much reaches that raid boss status. A bit of a pause here for a potty break, you know, whatever. Everyone's got to use the restroom at some point. You, small bladder gang. I don't want to leave nature hanging when she calls. But yeah, so thinking about overall pace of the game, how I expect this sort of get played out. Nocturne isn't going to want to accomplish very much until 6. Then at 6, the most vulnerable person is going to be the Kalista, albeit Kalista is fairly safe for the most part because of that Amumu support, and because she has her passive where she has the, I don't know what it's called, the fancy footwork thing. So, oh my god. So that is an option there. Ganking mid is going to be relatively difficult because Akali obviously has Shroud, has her E ability, and if she has R2 available, just gets out of there really easily. Urgot versus Alawi, I just expect Urgot to sort of be pushing into the Alawi. The big thing when you're playing against Alawi is you don't want to get hit by sort of her E ability where she sends out that spectral tentacle thing and you get that sort of mimicked clone that she just gets beat on. We don't want to see that happening, so typically the way to avoid that is by getting the push top lane. So it's possible that we're going to see the Nocturne sitting and hovering top for a decent part of the game for these counter ganks, because if Graves gets flipped by Urgot, then Graves is pretty free for Urgot Nocturne. So that is something I'm also keeping an eye out for, which means that Nocturne can pretty much play to both side lanes. So I just have to see which side lane he commits to. As for sort of that more team fight, what happens in the team fight, you basically have all the dive buddies together, so Diana and Nocturne can go together, Kai'Sa can follow up. And then you sort of have this Braum and Urgot as this follow-up support and CC as well. Meanwhile, TDS has sort of the Swambo where they can Kalista ult into a Mumu ult, and they have a decent chunk of that AoE damage, where Kali can then follow up with some of her executes.
We must all make choices.
So I think this is going to boil down to execution, as, you know, quite frankly it almost always does. But I wouldn't necessarily give either team a strong advantage in terms of draft. I think both teams have very different drafts, and I think that both drafts are viable options. But it's going to, yeah, the biggest thing is going to be how they play those. So TDS has this very committed all in, going for those team fights with Alawi splitting, whereas MiSFiTS has that pick potential, right? Nocturne is really good at splitting up the opponent, causing confusion, and there are so many champions there that can follow up on that Nocturne. And it's not like they're necessarily bad in team fights either, right? Braum ult is really powerful in team fights, Diana ult is really powerful in team fights. You know, Kai'Sa is going to be a better late game ADC than Kalista if you're just playing front to back. And Urgot is going to offer a lot more appeal than an Alawi or Graves could for the Kalista. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it goes. So, after this all gets locked in, we still have the 3 minutes where the game is loading. So my question to everyone in chat is, how many times are we going to see Kalista alone overextended dying to a Nocturne ult? I'll broaden that a little bit. Not necessarily just alone, although alone is one of the options, but even necessarily, you know, Amumu's in lane with Kalista, just decently far away, so that Kalista is still sort of isolated, right? How many times are we going to find Kalista isolated and get picked by either Nocturne or Kai'Sa? So personally, I think that the TDS ADC did a fairly good job of playing safe and positioning well in that last game, at least from the little tiny bits and pieces that I saw. So I really don't expect it to happen more than twice this game, but I'm curious what you guys think. You know, do you know something that I don't in terms of, you know, Eden's Nocturne? Do you know something that I don't in terms of our fearless leader's Kai'Sa? What do you guys think? And I guess you can also ask sort of that flip question of how many times do you think Kai'Sa is going to get caught out by, like, a Kali? That one I'm a lot less sure about, because, or a lot less confident answering, because I'm very curious to see how this Akali actually plays and how good they are. But while we do wait for that spectator delay, and I wait for you guys to answer in the chat, I'm gonna go run and grab a banana. And no, I will not record myself eating it. Sorry to Eden and to Verdant. You know, sorry to the whole MiSFiTS squad there. Sorry to disappoint. I know they'd look forward to it. You know, sorry when you look back and watch the VOD missing out on me eating a banana. But we'll see that in a bit. The game, not me eating. So, I'll be back in a sec.
Vengeance is at hand.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. Ha! 30 seconds until minions spawn.
Alright, I am back. I will try to mute for any munching that ensues, but I am a little hungry. But we do see that the Nocturne did drop that deep-ish ward towards Raptor Pit before grabbing the Sweeper. So, you know, good, solid, basic Vision fundamentals. I'm very curious to see if the Nocturne follows through this. Yeah, so they're all walking together. But that is going to also delay Nocturne a little bit, but it does get MiSFiTS into lane safely, and if they sort of committed to that fight, then Nocturne would have been right there behind them. And we do see, like I said, the Urgot getting the push on Alawi early on. Generally what you want to see. The Kalista Mumu also getting push on... Ooh, really big trade there for the Akali. Especially really early on, most of that damage and her kit is going to come out from her E ability. The Mumu went in super deep there, so you see how big of a trade that was for the side of MiSFiTS. That was so advantageous for them. Really good shield by the Braum. Can they commit to this all in? Amumu missed everything. They can just commit to this Amumu kill, get Amumu killed for first blood. Will they get it, though? It looks like the Ren is going to come out for Kalista first, but Kai'Sa is going to be able to return a double kill, most likely. No! The Amumu actually able to clutch that out. That is really unfortunate there for the side of MiSFiTS, but they do have both flashes and cleanse still available. Whereas, ooh, Dubstep Ignite, last tick, does he get it? And he does. Very well done there by Diana. So Graves does get spotted out, does get pushed off of Krugs. Unfortunately, that flip missed, but they do get some really nice damage out. Oh my god. Gotta respect the tentacles, my guy. And there you go, that's what happens when you disrespect the Alawi. So that's unfortunate, but things generally are looking pretty stable and pretty even across the board. But massive advantage here for the TDS United top laner. And unfortunately, Nocturne showing top to shove that wave and try and crash it. Also gives Graves the freedom to go into that Raptor camp, steal it away. So well done by TDS to punish these different mistakes happening around the map. How's CS going? Mid lane is down a little bit of CS, bot lane's ahead, you know, barely in CS. Top lane's down a decent amount of CS as well, but the jungle's fairly even. So the one big thing here is both solo laners, so Diana and Alawi both have solo kills. So if we look at gold, currently Alawi is well off, but Kallista's actually the wealthiest in the game. I'm surprised direct-to-camera shifted away from mid because that looked like an all-in angle, or a tower dive angle rather. Really good poke coming out from this Braum though, doing a lot of damage to the Kallista. But Graves, and here's the issue of letting Alawi crash waves to you. Look how much free damage he's taken just by trying to CS under tower. It's a very difficult matchup. If you fall behind, you are going to stay behind and get absolutely rocked. No plates going down just yet, but that top turret's basically 1 or 2 autos away from a plate. Good juke there by the Urgot. What on earth is a test of spirit? I would never have gotten that. But good job juking out the test of spirit there. Currently, based on items, I would say Diana has the advantage mid, but Diana is down almost an entire wave, or over an entire wave of CS. So that means that their gold is going to be fairly equal, but we do see the trade come through. You know, 3 Qs coming out from the Akali, finally able to do enough damage to trade back into the Diana. Good hit, but what's that going to accomplish? Running out of mana is going to be a big problem here for Diana, because Akali can be going, you know, all lane phase, not have to worry about it. But Quinn is hitting a lot of these Qs. Was it Lunar Crescent, whatever? He's landing a lot of them in a row, getting some decent poke off, but it is an Akali, and this Akali does unfortunately have Doran's shield, so that's a lot of regen coming back through. Oh, cannot believe that missed. And here you see the all-in coming through because Graves is there to support. No flash on the Diana. And here we see the Nocturnal coming bot lane. Really well done here. This is a really clean gank. Can they get both of them? No, unfortunately not, but at least they do get the Kallista. They do get the flash out of Amumu as well. Actually, both out of Kallista and out of Amumu. So they ended up trading 1 for 1 there on the map, and I have to say that that was probably a more beneficial trade for MiSFiTS than for TDS. The big reason for that is such a massive wave was denied to the Kallista. Granted, a decent-sized wave was also denied to the Diana, but more importantly because of which summoners are left available, right? Diana dying lost no summoners. Kallista dying lost a key flash, so Nocturne can immediately head bot lane again the second that ult is back up and ready. But Urgot straight up not having a good time this lane. Graves looking like he's positioned to, or wanting to walk up behind this tower and go for the dive. So Nocturne sitting here, hovering, making sure that's not going to happen. with that lane prio, both top and mid, they're going to go for this relatively free scuttle. Or not scuttle, Rift Herald. So they're going to sacrifice this Rift Herald, but they're going to take the opportunity to just catch up a bit in that farm, and they understand they're going to lose out on 2 plates, but hey, can we preemptively make up those 2 plates somewhere? So stun coming through, hits Diana. Amumu, really smart play there. The flash comes out of Diana. Beautiful ult there. Amumu does go down, and Graves is going to fall as well here to the Nocturne. So really well done there, 2-for-1 trade. Has to build a flash, but so do both Graves and Akali for that fight. So really well done by the Diana. Good heads-up decision. And now we see Kalista, because Amumu made that play mid, is getting zoned off of some of this experience and CS in the bottom lane. So this game, unlike last game, is very close right now as we're moving into this 12-minute mark. Yeah, unfortunately that Urgot E is a little bit on the slow side, a little bit telegraphed, so not quite fast enough to be a responsive dodge, or reactive dodge, to allow his test of spirit. I don't know about you guys, but the amount of damage this ROM Q does just poking in lane seems a little ridiculous. You see Herald being dropped top by the Alawi. Looks like Alawi's going to go for the full turret kill, but she's not going to be able to. Urgot ult should have come out there, gets that massive slow, takes a few more shots on the tower, and then you're ready for the execute. I think a little bit conservative of play there by the Urgot, but he does clear the way very quickly. Does force Alawi to take a lot of damage from that tower. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to matter too much in that lane. Alawi's going to keep that pressure going. And excuse me, silly me, for not having the objective timers up again. So I watched this fight before I try and fix the settings so that we can see these timers. That was weird. It looked like Akali went for R2 instead of moving to her E before going for R2, but in the end it doesn't matter and Graves is able to pick up that kill. So, let's see if we can interface. Shrink this HUD scale just a little bit. Oh, HUD scale's not what I want to do. Minimap scale is what I want to do. There we go. So now none of the timers are obstructed, my minimap is marginally smaller, and we're good to go. In my defense, if I die to the next gank, it's because my minimap is smaller. So now we do see Graves is in position here for the dive, but Nocturne's got a lot of damage coming through. Oh, if he committed to... Oh, they are going to commit to it. And Graves does get hooked in. Shut down going back over to the Urgot. That's going to be very... That's much needed on him. But we also see the TP coming in behind on this bottom lane. It looks like that's the Akali coming through. We do see that Kalista ult coming out. The Kai'Sa unfortunately ulting into Akali's face. But this TP here by the Urgot, I'm not sure it's going to accomplish much. He might actually go down for it, blows his flash, gets out, loses top turret as well. In the meantime, it looks like Diana's hitting that mid turret. Plates are down though, so she's not getting any plates, but can she trade back that tower? It does seem like she is able to do that. The question is it worth it? You know, I'm gonna lean more towards no. I think if she followed that roam, possibly with that Urgot TP, they could have gotten something accomplished, but you never know. But it does also look like they're gonna trade back 2 turrets for the price of 1. But if they stick around, they might be in for a little bit of trouble. They don't have any of their major cooldowns. Oh, that was such a clean combo by the Akali. Absolutely nuking the Kai'Sa. The Nocturne does trade onto the Moon, but now the Braum's going to go down for free, and that's going to be a 3-for-1 trade. 2 kills going to the Akali, 1 to the Kalista, and that's not a good look at all for MiSFiTS. Now this Akali is starting to pop off a little bit, and that is going to be very, very troublesome. So you see 3-1-4 Akali, she has that completed Night Harvester. Sitting at 6k gold in the game. Kalista is still significantly wealthier, which surprises me. But I suppose... actually, I really don't know what that gold is going to be coming from. But yeah, this is very problematic for MiSFiTS. The sort of early to mid-game ADC in Kalista is getting going. That really powerful assassin's getting going. That split push threat is getting going. The only one that's not really getting going that much is the Graves, but the Graves is, you know, by far the least of their concerns in this matchup currently. Braumwolf does clip the Kalista, but it looks like they're all just going to get cleaned up. Ooh, nice catch there by the Akali. You know, that doesn't look like Silver Akali gameplay to me. That looks a little too clean and rehearsed to be Silver Akali gameplay. But, you know, you never know. It's possible that this is a known second account or something, but that gameplay is looking a little clean. If they are Silver, then they just clearly have not played enough ranked games, honestly. That's looking very crisp. And now the Nocturne here looks like he's going to go down for free, gets caught out. Oh my god. There's no way Nocturne lives. What? Wait, Nocturne lives and Mumu dies? What? Graves dies as well? What am I watching? Oh my god. The Nocturne walks out with 2 HP and then we get a triple kill, or not a triple kill, we get 3 kills coming back from MiSFiTS. You know, I don't know what universe that play is supposed to work, but it did in this one, and they may have found an avenue back into this game where they're not in as uncomfortable a spot, because Graves is still down for another 8 seconds. Kali's still down for another 10. If they rush this dragon right now, then there's really nothing that TDS can do to contest this at all. And so there we go. Both dragons so far secured by MiSFiTS. So if they can rush for an early soul, it's going to be massive, especially with an... You know, I was going to say especially with an Ocean Soul, but Ocean, that sustain doesn't really help you too much when you're getting one-shot by an Akali. So we're going to have to see how the next few fights play out. Baron is now an objective on the map. Or soon to be one in the next 20 seconds. It looks like there's trying to collapse onto the Nocturne. Nocturne's dead right away, but that Diana ult got a lot of damage out. Amumu's still there, but there's no additional follow-up here. Diana wasn't getting out, so really good to get that trade back. And then we see the collateral damage coming out of the Graves, and Diana running away with 2 HP. The move speed boost from the Shroud is nice. Shuriken flip back. Going for an execute. You're not going to get an execute. I guess he does get an execute. You know, I could have sworn there's like another second left on that timer, but oh well. Unfortunately, this does mean that they have staggered deaths. So it's only ever going to be a 4v5 for this Baron. Though Callista's taking a lot of damage, I don't think they're even suspecting this Baron is happening. So this Baron is basically going to go uncontested for free over to the side of TDS. There's the Baron. Urgot is getting a decent-ish trade here because Alawi's out of mana, but he's got to be very, very careful because there he goes, gets pulled again. Akali TP coming through. My man is just dead. And there's another kill heading over to the side of the Akali. Akali sitting on 10 Darksteel stacks, walking to the jungle. They are going to try and go for the shutdown, but there are so many walls Akali can get out over. And we see Akali is gone. No problem. Now Kaiser has to be careful. Ooh, the Amumu ult missing the Kaiser, but still catching both the Nocturne and the Braum on the edge. Kaiser does get the kill off onto the Amumu, but is sort of stuck in that pit with the Akali, does get the flash out. So 1 for 1, both supports going down, but at this point 1 for 1 trades are always going to be more beneficial for the losing team. But Nocturne is playing a dangerous game here, trying to clear out these waves because Graves and Akali are both on the map. Granted, as observers, we do see that the Akali has taken the base, but we also see Graves wrap around now. Flash goes down, basically wasted. They're pinging the Graves flash, but Graves did not flash for that play. Graves flash is actually only just now coming back up off cooldown. Ooh, that was a beautiful snipe there on the Test of Spirit. And Urgot just has to walk away now. This turret is going to go down to this... You know? We love our League of Winions. Yeah, if Alawi had ult, that fight goes completely differently, but, you know, they know the ult is down because of that Urgot trade. So good on them for getting that pick. You know, whatever gold they can, you know, snag back is going to be very beneficial for them. Down 6k, more like 5.5k at 23 minutes. It's not great, but it's also not the worst position they could be in either. Baron is now timing out in the next 10 seconds, if I recall correctly. So it'll fade just in time for this next Ocean Dragon coming up right now. Or, you know, in the next 15 seconds. So popping the bone plating is always nice. Granted, it doesn't do too much at this point in the game. Now here we go. The Kai'Sa is split and separated, but Kai'Sa does survive on a tiny sliver of HP, but importantly, that's a Akali ult and a Akali flash going on cooldown. The problem is Akali's an assassin. Assassins have notoriously low ult cooldown, so we see it's already a third of the way back up. Now by the time Kai'Sa gets back to Dragon Pit, that Akali ult is going to be back up and available. A lot of damage coming through onto the Amumu. The dive comes through onto the Callista by the Nocturne. Amumu does get executed. The Fear does go off in the middle of the team fight. A lot of damage coming through, and Diana gets picked off on that top side as Braum dies on the bottom side, and there we go. So many people, I say so many people, you know, 2.5 people on low HP there. Graves was a little bit low, not super low. And we see how disastrously those team fights go. I mean, that was a full-blown 4v5 team fight. You know, maybe MiSFiTS thought they saw an angle there that wasn't quite there. But that team fight was brutal. Let's actually watch that back again. See exactly what sort of happened here. get this slightly better perspective going on. So a lot of good poke coming out from the Urgot on this top side, but we see this pull happens right away on the Diana, so... Oh, and that's so many tentacle spawns for the Alawi. That was 4 tentacle spawns. The Amumu does get executed. Right, and so we see the Nocturne on the backside, but the Nocturne is not capable of one-going into Callista. And now this entire team is chunked and pinned between 3 ranged champions, pretty much, because Akali is just going to poke at range. And now we see this next Rend going to come through and do so much damage. They're all taken so low, and Kaizo was never really able to enter that fight. So of course they grab the dragon, playing Wave Clear Simulator for a bit, clearing out some of the jungle camps. Nothing super exciting going on while we were watching that. Instant replay. But it does look like Braum now is going to get picked out. Trying to walk away, but there is red buff on this Callista. Callista is going to be able to kite to death, and Kali here as well. Flash ult out of the Amumu for the Diana. Beautiful ult out of the Diana, but it's really not going to be enough, and it looks like that Diana kill was the last stack Callista needed there for Treasure Hunt with that extra plus 170. Really beautiful spell shield there, blocking a lot of the instant damage from the ult. But now that Baron is left available again, so this is going to be the second Baron in a row for TDS, you know, in the span of 10 minutes, right? We're at the 27-minute... Baron has only been on the map for a grand total of 7 minutes and 20 seconds at this point. And they've gotten 2 of them. So, really good objective control, especially on that top side of the map, out of TDS, putting a lot of pressure back onto MiSFiTS. Now we see that that gold lead has extended to about 8 and 3/4k gold. Almost 9k gold lead here for TDS. And this is where we start getting to a really rough, near hopeless situation for MiSFiTS. Right, conceivably I do think that MiSFiTS still do outscale. But I also think that, generally speaking, this is a very rough position to be in, especially versus the type of composition that TDS has. Right, they just have all of those go buttons, and they're ready to go and punish the slightest misstep, the slightest positioning error, slightest mistake. And they're also welcome to make all sorts of positioning mistakes of their own. So like Akali walking there should not be allowed, but Akali is so strong and MiSFiTS are relatively weak overall that she's allowed to get away with whatever she wants. So, still sitting on that Dark Seal, not committing to the Mesh Eyes, looking for that Void Staff from the Akali. And we take a look at the gold. Akali's really not that far ahead of the Diana, but Akali is still able to get so much of that execute damage off in these fights. And Nocturne has fallen 3k gold behind Graves, with Kai'Sa falling 2k behind Callista. And surprisingly, Urgot is actually 1k down on the Alawi as well. So we can take a look at the items. We actually don't have a mythic yet for the Urgot, but I'm not super surprised there. Ravenous and Black Cleaver are both phenomenal items that you want to be rushing on Urgot. But we do importantly see this Hull Breaker out of Alawi as well. So very happy to just sit in the side lane by herself. Very difficult to kill. But if left alone will do so much damage to these turrets and these objectives. Meanwhile we see a 3-item Graves. This is your more bruiser oriented build for Graves, so nowhere near as much damage, but he's going to be this constant threat, constantly hitting you, constantly in the fight, very difficult to kill. And of course Amumu with the finished Thornmail, as well as having that Age of the Legion, or Locket of the Iron Solari rather. Just going to be able to provide so much assistance for the team. So many of that heal debuff, so many grievous wounds. Urgot's sort of walking forward, it doesn't accomplish too much. Nocturne does ult onto the Callista, but it doesn't look like he's going to accomplish much. Again, he just gets kited out on the back, gets blown up. Akali's now joining this fight, but Braum actually ate the Akali E. That was massive, because that keeps all of the carries alive and healthy for MiSFiTS. Akali randomly flashed into them, doesn't quite get the kill. Can they kill the Graves in time so that the Kai'Sa doesn't go down? And they do, so that is actually an ace for MiSFiTS. And so you can see the hubris of TDS coming back to bite them. Really well played there by MiSFiTS, getting everything they need done. You know, I think despite Nocturne not being able to 1v1 the Kalista on the backside, he has been doing a great job of splitting the team. So even though he's not getting the kills, he is forcing people to sort of separate and come back and potentially want to try and protect the Kalista, even if she doesn't necessarily need it. And so that gave MiSFiTS sort of that opportunity to get a lot of kills in. So let's see if we can watch this fight more slow-mo, see how it starts. We know the Urgot coming in at the start, tanks a lot on the front half. See the Nocturne coming out in the back. Alawi getting a big ultimate, but so does Braum. Right, Alawi's not able to get very much damage off here. It does get a nice burst heal, but gets immediately burst down. Meanwhile, Muma's on this back side. But now Kai'Sa can come in, does a lot of damage to Kalista, and here's that big one. We see Braum eats that shuriken from Akali. If that went onto the Kalista, Kalista's dead here. So then we saw the cleanup happen, where Akali accidentally blew the flash. Beautiful stopwatch out of the Kai'Sa, and that wraps up the fight. You know, going back to our game of clearing waves and establishing vision control, because now we need to keep in mind Baron is going to be on the table soon. You know, another 50 seconds on that one. Big damage. Oh my god, Kai'Sa losing half her health bar just immediately. But we are now positioning around this Baron. 30 seconds on the objective. Urgot, I don't think that's a fight you want to take, but Braum is getting caught on the side here as well. Braum going down as Baron is spawning in 20 seconds is not what you want to see. Braum offered so much utility in that last fight. A big part of why that fight went so well. And so now that's going to be an important player in these major team fights out of the picture. No Braum for Baron. Akali is bot lane, but she also has the TP, so Akali is more than happy to sit there for a while. And you know, this thing with the Akali, you get both the shuriken jump away as well as R2, but Diana's coming back on the flip side, seeing if she can get some sort of pincer here. Possibly go for that or there is no shutdown anymore, we already got that shutdown. And in the end, Akali still gets out anyways, and TDS secures that Baron. So game currently sitting at about an 8k gold lead. So the really important thing here is that TDS has not really been able to grow that gold lead. And another thing to keep in mind is they've gotten 3 Barons. How many times have you seen a team get 3 Barons without winning the game? That's my first question. The second one is, it's not so much a question, but each Baron is 1500 team gold. So 4,500 of TDS's gold is from Barons. So if it weren't for the Barons, then MiSFiTS would be, you know, within like 4,000 gold, 3,500 gold of TDS. But beautifully done there, the Fate's Call, saving the Amuth. That is Fate's Call. Yes, okay. See, I know some of my abilities, just not random Alawi E. Moonfall, Killer Instincts, Glacial Fissure, Paranoia, Fear Beyond Death, Leap of Faith. Okay, that is collateral damage, perfect execution. Okay, just... I will mess half of those up again immediately, but it's okay. Another Urgot is here. That was interesting. I didn't expect to see Alawi flash away, but you see how Alawi is positioning here between 3 tentacles. buying time now for that dragon that's spawning right this second, so that does look like it's going to be a third ocean dragon in a row over to the side of TDS. Yeah, they're not fighting this anymore, or they're not fighting that dragon. That Sterix did so much there to try and keep Alawi alive, but just not quite enough. Alawi again almost killing 2 people there. And so this is sort of that power of Hull Breaker split push Alawi. You just become this very difficult to deal with, nigh on unkillable threat. But as we start... If TDS gets Ocean Soul with 4 Ocean Dragons, then any team fight lasting longer than like 10 seconds is going to be so problematic for MiSFiTS. So we are keeping an eye on that timer. 4 minutes on Dragon, 3 minutes on Baron. A little bit of chip onto Amumu, but triple Ocean. You know, give it another minute of them pushing and he's going to be just fine, perfectly happy and healthy. But still, we see the game is now only 7k gold apart. You know, where's a lot of that gold situated? Just under 1k is situated top. There's a 4k gold lead here for jungle. But we see now that mid is dead even in gold, and ADC is just a hair behind. So most of this gold lead is actually onto the Graves. Which again, like I said, he's got this really bruisery build going on, so it's not a bad build per se, it's just not this immediate damage threat build. But again, once you start stacking in all those Ocean Drakes, that's so much sustain in these fights. He's going to be very difficult to get takedown, and he just completed that Maw of Malmortius as well. So Ravenous, Gore Drinker, Death Stance, and Maw, all of which contributing to that bulk significantly. But we do see the Jack Show Diana, and that's going to be very nice as well, because you are going to last in these team fights a while. You do want those extra stats. You want both armor and MR, even though there's really only the one magic damage threat. You can always make the argument for more damage, but, you know, in a lot of these fights, it's can I survive long enough to get out my combo? And with Jack Show, Diana certainly has that. That is Jack Show, right? I'm not crazy. Yeah. And with Jack Show, Diana certainly has that. As well as the Urgot now as well. Jack Show, Thornmail, Black Cleaver, Ravenous. So pretty durable build as well. So we're going to have to see how these builds play into the triple Ocean Dragon. So Baron coming up in 45. For whatever reason, TDS has double Control Ward in the pit. A little bit of vision control in MiSFiTS' blue side jungle, but relatively lacking vision out of TDS, not really in super deep, not really getting the vision they want or need, but now they are clearing out a couple more wards. They essentially have every possible entrance warded, aside from... Why did Akali ult there? You know, I'm not gonna... Question doesn't matter. Diana is, or Akali's gonna have that ult back up in 20 seconds anyways. So, Amumu flashing and solo ulting the Kalista on the backline. Big Diana ult coming through, but unfortunately not enough as some of these tentacles come out. Alawi putting in so much work in this fight. Kai'Sa getting dropped to GA. Shuriken immediately hitting from the Akali. Urgot's still alive, but they don't care. Urgot's not doing any damage to the rest of these guys. Another perfect execution coming out from the Akali. And, it's just Nocturne left alive. And this might be all she wrote for a best of 3. It's possible that they are playing a 3-block scrim, but that was just a brutal fight there at the end. So let's see if we can break it down just a little bit better. Alright, so it looks like they're going for this collapse onto Alawi. So Kai'Sa is isolated on this backside now. And here we see Fate's Call from the Callista. Fate's Call coming out, flash ult, solo ult onto the Kai'Sa. And so now we have Diana here, big damage out, but loses like half her HP instantly because I think that's actually 2 tentacles like stacked on the same spot there. That was so much instant burst coming out of the Diana, or out of the Alawi. Possible is also just Divine Sunder proc. And then here was just the rest of that team fight where everyone just sort of got cleaned up. Not much that could have been done at that point. But yeah, I mean, even if this game doesn't end just taking this favorable fight, both Baron is available, and we see these death timers almost a full minute. So Baron's available now, and Dragon is going to be that next objective. And sitting on Baron plus Ocean Soul with quadruple Ocean Dragon is going to be an absolutely brutal combination. And so, unfortunately, that is it for the best of 3. I'm going to check if it's best of 3 or 3-block. And if it's a 3-block, then we have one more game to go. If it's best of 3, we are done, and that's it. So that was best of 3, so we are done for the evening. Again, I'm very sorry about that game 1. Internet was having issues, had to do router reset. Now it's finally working. So, a bit unfortunate, but it does happen. Oh, can we see the stats? You know, I'd like to know who these stats belong to. But, you know, we can see sort of this gold at the end of the game here. And that top lane matchup, ultimately down just under 2k. That jungle matchup down 5k. Mid lane matchup, you know, up until that last team fight was pretty much dead even. ADC as well here, only down 1k at the very end. And the support matchup, again, also very close as well. So, that was the best of 3. GG's all around. This Akali's a little sus in my mind, but, you know, it'd be like that sometimes. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call